Now, joining us tonight is a very special guest, and I was trying to think of the perfect way to introduce him. Now, the best way to introduce him would be just like this, with a poem. Tonight, I get to talk to a wrestler I watched when I was a lad. He leaped when he was good. He talked down to us when he was bad. Yes, there were nights this man made us smile, and others he made us frown. He threw frisbees to the audience or wore his mortarboard gown. Yes, I have a special treat right now for every wrestling fan. I have Leaping Lanny Poffo and the world's smartest man. Lanny, welcome to the show.
I am the world's smartest man. Thank you. That's
What'd you think?
I enjoyed your poetry very much. Let me give you one. Be humble when victorious. Be noble in defeat. Be there when your neighbor hasn't got enough to eat. Try to love your enemy and always be aware that World Cup or Super Bowl, the tortoise beats the hare. Aha. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. Let's make this the greatest interview of your life, and for me, the most recent.
Perfect. Lanny, coming from a wrestling family, was it always assumed you were going to wrestle? Was there any other kind of career options for you, or did you always know it's something you were going to do?
Well, my brother wanted to be a baseball player. Maybe you've heard of him. Maybe he was somewhat successful. Who am I talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The Macho Man.
Yes, maybe people, people remember him because a lot of wrestlers are run of the mill, but Randy, if you saw him once, you remember him forever.
Very true.
So anyway, he wanted to be a baseball player, and wrestling was his plan B. I always knew that I would never make it in baseball, and so wrestling was my plan A. So I didn't want to become a welfare recipient, if you know what I'm saying. So I started wrestling in June of 1973, and my career lasted 21 years.
Where did you get your style from? I mean, you were so innovative at the time. No one was doing the stuff you were, but you also had a ground and pound style. So where did you develop that hybrid style? Who'd you take it from?
Well, my name came from Leaping Larry Shane. Have you ever heard of him?
Nah.
Okay, write that name down, or Leaping Larry Shane, Chene. He was from Detroit. He was fantastic, much better than me. But the trouble was he was a bad driver. He drove too fast. I'm not a good driver myself, but I drove slowly. Some people gave me the finger, but unfortunately he died early. And so my father insisted, since my name was Lanny, I would be Leaping Lanny as a tribute to Leaping Larry Shane. Now, please go on YouTube and see how great Larry Shane was. You'll see that he was phenomenal. And also, and then they were going to fire me. I had been there 5 years as Leaping Lanny, and they said, we have too many baby faces, we need heels. I said, why don't you make me a heel? And Chief J. Strongbow says, ooh, you can't be a heel, you're too good looking. I said, well, you're a baby face for 30 years, and you're the ugliest man I've ever met. So where's the logic, And when you think about it too, think about Rick Rude, Nick Bockwinkel. These are heels, bad guys, and they're good looking. But when a guy says he's good looking, he gets more heat. It's just the way it is.
Was there anybody though besides that one gentleman you talked about that you took your style from? I'm just curious to know, like where did you develop such a unique style for the time?
Well, I stole my gimmick from about 100 people, and a little bit from each person. They say if you steal from one guy, it's theft or plagiarism. If you steal from 100 people, it's research. And I remember Damian Sandow. He had, Steve Kern said, come over, he wants to see you. And this was during, I guess, before NXT. And he says, would you mind if I took your gimmick a little bit? And I said, hey, I stole it first. I said, I said, I stole it from a lot of people. I said, my career is over. Make as much money as you can. And thank you for asking, but it wasn't really my gimmick, you know? The only thing real about my gimmick was the poetry, because I wrote every one of them, including the one I just wrote you. But you wrote that one that you just gave me. So we're tied there, you know? And by the way, congratulations on counting your syllables and, you know, having a rhyme framework. Because if you don't rhyme or count your syllables, it's like playing tennis without a net. It's fun, but it's not tennis.
You mentioned Steve Kern. I graduated high school in 1992. That summer, I did my first TV, and the first match I had was Steve Kern. What a gentleman! What a
Oh yeah,
gentleman!
I love Steve Kern. Everybody that knows him loves him. He's a fantastic performer and an even better human being. And he's happily married. His children are excellent, and they're all doing very well. You know, you only hear about the bad ones, but nobody talks about the successful people like Steve Kern, like Tito Santana, like, you know, the people that did well in their private life too.
Lenny, what could you tell me about the territory you, your brother, and your dad had? I mean, technically, it was an outlaw territory. And when I hear the word outlaw, I think either you're running in someone's backyard or you're running without the NWA approval. Is that pretty much what it was? And can you tell me a little bit about why it started?
Well, I was in Portland, Oregon, working for Don Owen, and Roddy Piper took an interest in me. Okay, and he said, "I have an idea. Can you work heel?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "You know, you would be great against the Guerreros. You know, there's about 5 of them, and they're all in Los Angeles. And with my acrobatic style," and I said, "Well, that'd be great." He says, "Okay, Mike LaBella is going to give you a call." And he did, and we talked for an hour. And I told him that I told him I spoke Spanish, so I, you know, not great, but I can get heat with it, you know, insulting the people, getting them to pull out their cuchillos, their knives, you know. So anyway, about 2 weeks later, I got the word that we're going to start our outlaw independent group. And boy, was I ever upset about that. And that meant I had to call back Mike LaBelle and tell him, "Thank you, but I can't do it." And then I had to call Roddy, I had to speak to Roddy Piper directly. And, but Mike LaBelle and Roddy Piper were so nice to me that it made me feel even worse. If they had been jerks, I said, "Well, I feel, oh good, I don't have to work for a jerk." But they were so wonderful about it. And, you know, what really made me sad was Mike LaBelle says, "I can tell on the phone by your voice that you can do, I've got people that can get you sound work, you know, like for your voice." And I said, "And I'll even get you a screen test because I've got friends in show business." So naturally, I was all excited and thinking I was going to be the next movie star. And then wound up, I never got to go. So that was like strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3. And then I said, "Well, I'm a member of this family. I got to do my best." So what I did was I wrote the program. I took the pictures. Um, um, I even found a place that did lithographs for 6 cents a piece. And we sold it for $1. That's a 94% profit. And for black and white lithographs, which is a little bigger than 8 by 10. And we made a fortune. I mean, that was great. And I decided, don't think about Los Angeles, concentrate on what I've got to do. And, you know, it wasn't what I wanted, but I was, if Randy was the Sonny Corleone, I wasn't the Michael. I was the Fredo.
You're on the bottom, huh?
Yeah. It's not the way I wanted it.
How do you get other guys and such great talent to join an outlaw promotion? I mean, Bob Roop, you had Ronnie Garvin, you had Bob Orton Jr., who I mean, I think is probably one of the best workers of all time. Like, how
I
do you get
agree
guys
with,
to join the promotion?
wait a minute. I agree with you 100%, because he even made me look good. And well, in my credit, I listened. Okay. I didn't say, no, Bob, here's what we're going to do. He would go, yeah, you know. No, listen, I love working with Bob Orton Jr. The reason we had such great talent is because Ronnie Garvin, Bob Orton Jr., Bob Roop, Professor Boris Maximilianovich Malenko, they were all going opposition to the Fullers in Knoxville. So this just happened as just a lucky break that we were able to infuse our place with so much talent. So, and then, you know, something, no matter how great it is, like Macho Man against Ronnie Garvin, they drew a lot of money. But after you've seen them and they've had their fifth return match, you know, it's nice to get new blood in there. And when you're an independent group, you can't. You know, you can get new blood, but it won't be as good. So we had to train our own talent. We had some excellent people, Rick McCord. We had Bill Martin, the Batten twins. We had some really great talent that went on to do very well in wrestling. Terry Gibbs, you know, I can't think of anybody right now, but they came, they went, and they did their best. And it was good for them. A lot of them were either at the end of their careers or the beginning. And people, you know, I just got an email from somebody that said, would you ever start the ICW up again? And I said, I am what you call jubilado, which is Spanish for retired. And no, I am not going to start anything up anymore. Okay, I have one booking in next month in October. Okay, and I'll probably be in Stamford, Connecticut, talking about my brother's costumes. Okay, and then in November I'm going to Germany, and then in December I'm going to do one of those virtual signings. So in Newark, New Jersey, by the airport, at a hotel, and so I live in Quito, Ecuador. So if somebody wants me, it's a little bit more expensive. You see what I mean? Than if it was just hanging around Florida. But the reason I'm here is because, well, the low is 48 degrees Fahrenheit and the high is 68 degrees Fahrenheit every single day for 365 days. It is the land of eternal springtime. And I'm going to be 68 years old, December 28th. And I'd rather spend it in the spring, you know, instead of the bitter cold or the really hot.
That's awesome. What can you tell me about working for Bill Watts?
Bill Watts is a very impressive man. A lot of people don't like him, but I thought he was, I hate to use the expression, a genius, okay? And he was cool under pressure, very demanding. And the territory was long trips, okay? But I was lucky to be friends with Grizzly Smith. I know people say things about him now that he's gone, and there's rumors. I have no idea, but you know, Rockin' Robin has never lied to me, so she's a wonderful woman, and I don't belittle anything, but I have to say, I judge people by the way they treated me, and it was great having him as the driver, because I think he would fall asleep at the wheel and still wind up in the town.
That's great. You worked with Jim Cornette in the Midnight Express there, correct?
Yes, I did. And three of the most talented people, of course, Bobby Eaton, you know, was great in the ring, not too good on the microphone. Right. He talked like he had a mouthful of syrup, you know, and then he had a couple of tag team partners calling themselves the Midnight Express, right? Can you name them?
Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, Dennis and Randy were a team.
Well,
Randy Rose.
I'll tell you what, you win the turkey, okay? Now they were phenomenal to work with, because back then they had a lot of 300-pound heels that were like paralyzed in the ring and just meat choppers. And I can't work with those people. But when I got Dennis and Bobby together with their manager, it was phenomenal. I loved it, and I can't. People say, "Oh, that guy can work with a broom handle." I couldn't. I needed a Bob Orton Jr. or a Bobby Eaton or a Dennis Condrey.
What can you tell me about going to the WWF?
Oh, I would have never. By the way, if I had anything against my brother for not letting me go to Los Angeles, he sure made it up to me. But he got me into the WWE, WWF, and the way I looked at it, okay, I wasn't going in on top. I was just going in as see what's up, and I didn't care if they gave me a job taking the jackets back to the dressing room. Eventually, if you got any talent, they'll notice. And, I got 4 months of main events, 2 in Madison Square Garden. And that's a lot less than Bruno Sammartino got. But to me, it was very, very good. Like a fat girl on prom night, I got a date for the dance, and I was very happy.
Did they ever want to do anything with you and Randy together? I know you were in the ring with him when you read the Macho King poem, but I mean, nowadays it would be impossible to hide the fact that you guys are brothers. Back then, did they ever bring it up? They wanted to do anything with you guys?
Well, I never made any suggestions. I just did what I was told, and that's why I lasted 8 years. And I have to say, I would have loved to have wrestled my brother on WrestleMania, but that wasn't in the program. It wasn't in the cards. But at least I got to wrestle the immortal Hulk Hogan in several Saturday night main events, and also twice in Madison Square Garden. And then I'm not saying I drew it, but a couple of box office records fell. But I was just a co-star in Los Angeles and Oklahoma City, speaking of Bo Watts. And business was good. But I must also say that I had a fantastic partner, Mr. Perfect.
What can you tell me about Kurt Hennig?
Well, he's an excellent person, a lot of fun in the locker room, fantastic to wrestle. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but it was Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, against Leaping Lanny Poffo when he first came in, okay? And Randy saw one of the matches and said, "Ooh, that was a hell of a match. How was he to work with?" I said, "Like butter." And he made me look good, and then he took that, what do they call that, Northern Lights suplex or whatever it's called, and
Plex?
what's that?
The perfect plex?
Whatever it was, yeah, it was, and it was like butter. Everything was great. He's a professional. I was very upset about, acute cocaine overdose. I'm a guy that never took a drug, and I had no idea he had a problem.
Why did they transition you from a wrestler to a manager?
I never asked. I was just lucky to have the position. Like mine was not to reason why, mine was but to do or die. And the only thing I counted was the money and the miles.
Right. Right. Well, I wasn't sure whether to ask you this or not, but I figured the worst you can say is you don't want to talk about it. There's a clip on YouTube of you and an independent wrestler named Hannibal, and you get into a backstage fight. I'm sure you know Hannibal got himself in a little bit of trouble right now. But what was that a real fight? Was it not a real fight? Do you
Wait
want
a
to talk
minute.
about
Wait a
it?
minute. What trouble is he in?
Oh, you didn't read? Oh, it's on the internet. I don't know all the facts. I read that he got arrested in August for assaulting a woman. allegedly, excuse me, allegedly assaulted a woman. Doesn't say who it was. It just says allegedly assaulted a woman. He was released to the custody of his parents. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or what, because I've never heard of something like that. And he stands trial in October. That's the only facts that I know.
Wow, I had no idea. But I'm in Ecuador. I'm trying to cram as much living into the rest of my life as I can. And I belong to the religion of not holding a grudge, because that's what's going to make you mean and ugly and angry. And, it's just, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I don't know what happened. If he did something bad, he should be punished. But I believe in due process. In other words, if he's got something to say, let him go to court and say it. If he's innocent, if he's guilty, that remains to be seen. But I don't want to dodge the question you asked me. He, let's see, he was wrestling with me, okay? And then he wanted, after the match, to have a shoot between the two of us, which means real, okay? And I wasn't crazy about the idea, and it wasn't going to be a shoot. It was going to be a work shoot. In other words, it was going to look real, and he told me not to tell anybody. Well, at the time, Jeff Doherty was there, a very dear friend of mine, and I didn't want him to be upset by what was going on. So I told him that we're going to do something in the locker room. Okay. And the other former star that was there was Honky Tonk Man. I told him what was going to happen because, out of respect, I didn't want him, just in case he thought it was real, I didn't want him to pull us apart. So I went in there angry because the match was stiff, which it was, and then I think he wanted me to hit him as hard as he could in the face, as hard as I could in the face. And I didn't want to do that because I throw a very good punch anyway. And I don't have to hit you in order to make it look real. So I said, no, I'll just slap you several times, left, right, whatever, paintbrush him. And even when I did that, I didn't use the heel of the hand, and I didn't do it on the eardrum or the mandible or the maxilla. I did it with these phalanges and did it in the front part of his face. Okay. I know I'm sounding like the genius, but the jawbone connected to the ankle bone, whatever. So anyway, so I slapped him once, twice, three times, whatever it was, in realistic slaps, but not dangerous. And then he said he was going to leg dive me and hook my arm and pin me. And what happened was, he leg dived me and he hooked my arm and he had me covered, but I couldn't breathe because he weighs 275 pounds. He's very strong. He had all his weight on my sternum. Wow. And he knows how to grapple. I mean, don't take that away from him, okay? I mean, you may not like him. A lot of people don't. He got me and I tried to get out. And then I couldn't because it was like a man against a boy, really. I was on my back. He had me all hooked up and I couldn't breathe. And I think to myself, why don't I just relax my body, not try to get out because I can't. And that way I save oxygen, okay? And then in the meantime, I'm doing this on his arm, see? That's called the office. That means let go. But he ignored that. I went, boop, 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 boop. And I couldn't say let go because I couldn't breathe and I couldn't speak. Do you understand the pressure I was in? I thought I do. And if he didn't let me go, I was going to die because I happen to know that you need oxygen. Okay.
You don't have to be the genius to know that.
Not just on weekends, you need it all the time. Okay. You need O2 in and CO2 out. So what I'm trying to tell you is he almost killed me. And listen, it's not because I'm an old man. If I was as young as him, I would have still been in the same hold. And if I would have tried to stop him from getting that hold, he would have gotten it anyway. So I'm not trying to tell you that I can beat him in a shoot. I'm absolutely sure I can't. Okay. So he got me down, boom, boom, boom. Finally, he let me go, and took me a while to get my breath. And then I went right back to yelling at him, and then, so that's about what happened, but that's not the reason I dislike him. Okay. Can I tell you why?
Please.
I was wrestling. Well, actually, I went to the gym, and this guy says, "Hey, you're on YouTube naked in the shower." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, send me the link." And I gave the guy the blah, blah, blah text thing. He sends me the link, and guess what? I'm naked in the shower.
What?
Okay,
Wow.
now fortunately, it was just my butt. Okay. It was just the backside of me, and it was only for about 5-6 seconds. But I see that Jeremy Prophet starts up by saying, "Hey, we got some really fun. You're going to see the genius naked." He's laughing at me.
That's got to be against the law.
Oh yeah, and then they shoot it was just my butt, which everybody's butt looks about the same, and nothing in the frontal nudity. Okay, and then so I'll tell you what, I was Facebook friends with both guys, Jeremy Prophet and Devin Nicholson. So I said, "Okay, you guys, I saw that I made the mistake of thinking I could take a shower in your venue without being videotaped. And I didn't know that videotape would air on YouTube. But I am going to unfriend you, and do not ask me to wrestle for you again, because that is the last straw." So then, Jacques Rougeau, very nice man. I love the Rougeau family. They're good guys. But I see he keeps posting on my Facebook, and this time it was a thing of Jeremy Prophet. And I said, "Well, I'll be damned if I'm going to help him get over on my website that's got like 25,000, followers and friends."
Wow.
And so I was about to delete it, but I said, maybe I better just look at it first. And I watched his interview. It was a heel interview. And I said, "You got to admit, Jeremy Prophet gave a hell of a promo, and I cannot delete it. I don't like him because he made fun of me behind my back on video. I don't like him, but you got to give him credit for this. He's got a fantastic appearance. He's a hell of a worker, and he's a great interview. And I will be damned if I'm going to delete his interview. He's that good. And I may not like him after what he did, but do you understand my?
I do.
Okay, it's a great interview, and there's so few great interviews anymore. Let him go on with his interview." So I did. I let him go on with it. I'll tell you the reason I like Jacques, because Dynamite Kid was messing with him, and boy, did he get even. And I'll tell you what, you ever hear about guys fighting and say, "Well, that was uncalled for"? No, this was called for.
Yeah.
And he took his mighty fist and punched his lights out, baby. And the guy Dynamite was a bully, but he ran into a tougher guy. And and Raymond and him, they're fantastic people. The father, the uncle, all the Rougeaus are excellent people. And good for him to get, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because it's not my story, but what a punch. I didn't see it, but I was in tour in France and Italy with Dynamite. and his teeth were gone.
Wow. We have time for two more questions.
Yes.
Awesome. What are your thoughts on Vince McMahon?
Well, you know, who signs my check is whose praise I sing. You've ever heard that expression?
I did now. I love it.
Okay, he's not signing any more checks for me, but the money he gave me continues to accrue interest. So I am very in favor of Vince McMahon. He's an excellent man. The truth is, I wish I were more like him. But since I can't be like him, at least I can like him. Okay. I never saw him. I've never seen him yawning. I've never seen any scuzz on his shoes, and I've never seen him in need of dental floss. The guy is meticulous. Do you understand me? And I don't knock success. And some people do. I think that's very sad. Vince McMahon is a very successful man. And, you know, a lot of people were rooting against him, including, you know, billionaire Ted and the United States court, you know, whatever. I wish him a happy final gliding path of life. And I want to say, if you're listening, thank you for doing that for my brother, Elizabeth, and myself. I am very, very appreciative. And I'll have you know that my life is good and better because of him.
I know the Macho Man. The world knows the Macho Man. Everybody knows the Macho Man. What could you tell us about the man, Randy Poffo, the brother, the friend, the human being? Can you give us a little glimpse of that?
Well, he never did a thing to me. He only did things for me. Okay. And even when you include the thing in Los Angeles that I didn't get to do that I wish I had, he more than made up for it, because what I got was greater than my wildest dreams. And he was always on my team, helping me, pushing me, and doing his very, very best for me. And he's been gone 11 years. Luckily, my father died 1 year before. Unfortunately, my mother was still alive, and I had to take care of her for 6 years while she went create mashugana, which is a Jewish word. See, my father's Italian, and my mother's side is Lithuanian and Belarus Jewish. But it was horrible to see my mother viewing my brother in the casket, and then finally his ashes. It was, you know, it was a nightmare.
Wow.
But that's you know, hey, I've got a daughter and I've got 2 grandsons. The old must die, the young may die. You just never know, you know. And I'll tell you what, I love my brother. There are still some people that are very, very, very jealous of him. Sometimes when you see these interviews, you know, like, okay, may I say one thing? They say Randy locked Elizabeth in the closet. Did you hear that one?
I've heard a lot of rumors. Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me tell you, since I was there,
Yes.
Elizabeth wanted to lock the door from the inside. She did not want to take a shower with Brian Knobs.
Smart woman.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, these were not the Boy Scouts. And she wanted to, what Randy did, it didn't matter if it was Paducah, Kentucky, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He gave the fans their money's worth every single time. And if he thought that I didn't give the fans my best, well, he could keep talking after he made his point that I was like a pickpocket, you know, of the fans, you know, they paid their money. And Randy would try just as hard in the small towns as the big towns. And his theory was, hey, I'm from a small town. I'm from Downers Grove, Illinois. He wouldn't like it if somebody just mailed in the performance. In other words, you buy the ticket, you get the best show he can give you. And that's the story. What do you think of that?
A tremendous work ethic right there.
And, you know, he knew because he was not the biggest guy, he worked on his suntan. which he lived in Florida, got a lot of sun, but he would get 1 hour of sunbed every single day on the road after his workout. And then Andre the Giant was mad at him, baby oil, you usually baby oil. So I told Randy, why don't you make an exception in the case of Andre the Giant? He said, hey, whose side do you want? There are no exceptions. I got to have a tan. So he told Andre, your gimmick is being a giant. Mine is having baby oil. So I'm thinking to myself, can't he, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, seriously. Who are your favorite guys to work with in WWF, and who are your least favorite guys to work with?
Before I became the Genius, I was the guy that would put over the heels that Vince wanted to put over. And I would say my favorite guys to do that for was Terry Funk, Bob Orton Jr., Harley Race, Dory Funk Jr. I'm telling you, I did these favors for these guys in every town. Mr. Perfect was one of them. My least favorite was Bam Bam Bigelow. One time, he got me in a leg scissors, and I guess he didn't wash his tights, but it smelled like a combination of ammonia and cat urine. And I'm thinking to myself in this leg scissors, what kind of a career choice did I make to wind up in this horrible hold by this terrible person? And but I have to say, my favorite guy to wrestle was Hulk Hogan, because he took me out of the scrap heap and he put me on his level for one brief shining moment. And I will never be done being appreciative of that. And I've been interviewed about him, and I can only say good things about Hulk Hogan and thank him for all he did for me. He likes my gimmick, and he thought he could have some fun with it. So that's how I feel about that.
The rest of the locker room think? There you are a couple years ago, you're putting them over. Now you're higher on the cards as a lot of the guys that you used to work with. Were guys happy for you? Were guys jealous of you?
Well, I remember it was Topeka, Kansas, when I walked into the locker room, and Rick Rude is there with his friends, and he says, are you only getting a match against Hulk Hogan because your brother's the Macho Man? And I said, yes. Didn't you know that? I said, this business is about favor, not merit. And all his friends laughed at him because I took the bullets out of his gun, but he didn't know I was going to go over. He didn't know that. And then he says, the next day was in Wichita, Kansas. And he says, yeah, I heard you had a good match. I said, really? What I heard was they're going to erase the tape. So basically, Rick Rude was very popular with the guys in Minnesota. He was a very good bouncer. He was a champion arm wrestler. He was legit. But he only cared about two things in this world, Rick and Rude, okay? And he was mad because Hulk didn't want to work with him. And if Hulk doesn't want to work with you, you don't work with him. He had to wait until Ultimate Warrior became champion, and I'll tell you what, Rick Rude had a great match with the Warrior. Not quite as good as my brother's match with him, but, considering the problem of working with the Warrior, it was pretty good. Okay, I want to say something. I don't do interviews anymore. So if anybody's watching, I don't do them anymore. But there's only one reason I said yes to you. Guess why?
Because we have a mutual friend.
We have a mutual friend that not only caught my Frisbee in Staten Island, but he kept it. And he's an excellent person, and say his name.
Tommy Fierro, my best friend.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he's a friend of yours, you're a friend of mine. Okay?
I'm his daughter's godfather. He was the best man at my wedding. I've known him forever.
I do not do interviews anymore because I'm retired and I have nothing to plug. Okay, I have one thing to plug. I still do Cameo. So check out Cameo, Lanny Poffo. I only charge $50. Guess who charges $2,000? I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
He was an Olympic champion, and now he isn't.
Kurt Angle?
Caitlyn Jenner.
$2,000?
Yeah, and I guess she's getting it because, but I'm not going to make the commitment to that cost going up. You know, basically, I'm going to stay cisgender and keep the equipment I've got. Okay, but anyway, tell Tommy Fierro I said hello, and I appreciate the fact not only that he caught the frisbee, but he kept it, because I didn't even keep my frisbees. Okay.
How can people reach you to book you for Cameo?
Just go on cameo.com and look up Lanny Poffo, Lanny Poffo. It's very easy, and it's $50. So, and in fact, that's the only thing I do anymore. And I love Ecuador. If you or Tommy Fierro is ever in Quito, Ecuador, look me up. I'll take you to nice restaurants. I know where everything is.
Wonderful. This was a blast, Lanny. Thank you.
Hey, the pleasure was mine, and thanks for doing your homework. Sometimes I get interviewed and they don't even know, even the questions suck because they just didn't do their homework or something. But obviously you love wrestling and you know all about it. So thank you so much. I have to go now. You have a beautiful day, and send me the link because I think this is a good interview.
Well, thank you, Lanny.